We want to really hear about how 2020 impacted the lives of so many through the utility world. And so before we get started with our questions, I would really like for you to introduce who you are, how long you've been with your utility, and your role there.
Okay. Yeah, Brian Springfield. I've been with LG&E and KU for about a year and a half now. I'm an energy efficiency program manager, and I currently manage the We Care program, which is an income qualified home assistance program in terms of we do renovations to homes to make them more energy efficient.
I'm John Baladian. Thank you, Scott. I'm the director of our energy efficiency portfolio for DTE, and we're a dual fuel utility. So we manage our gas and electric energy efficiency programs, from our regulatory filings to managing our programs, from also evaluation. I've been with DTE for over 25 years, and the last, I think, 5 or 6 years, I've been with the Energy Efficiency Organization, and I lose track of time because I'm very blessed that I get to lead this organization. So thank you for allowing me to be here today.
My name is Yvonne Lewis, and I have been working with Consumers Energy for about 5 years, and I am currently the program manager for the Income Qualified program.
Okay, great. So let's roll into our questions. With all of the challenges that were presented in 2020, how did your team continue to display their commitment to diversity and workforce development while continuing to focus on energy efficiency and the savings targets for 2020?
To answer your question, 2020 is really no different than 2019 or 18. The opportunity and the commitment to diversity and workforce development has always been a core value at DT, and especially in the energy savings portfolio that we manage. Working though in 2020 was a challenge because of some of the partnerships that we had with our agencies were during COVID had to shut down based on guidelines. However, we looked for additional opportunities to help those agencies outside of what we would call the norm, and purposefully did extensive outreach, especially when we came out of the stay-at-home order, to make sure we cast the net as further as we could. We did a lot of outreach and visual presentations to the community, worked with our implementers such as your firm to make sure people knew funds were available and that we were out there. Again, no different than any other year, but it was a much more concentrated effort in a shorter period of time, and communication was key to making sure our customers knew that these opportunities existed because they had so many different challenges on their mind.
We made a conscious decision. We all talked about it and voted on one. We didn't want to put our staff in the field. That was just too risky. And but what could we do? We didn't want jobs to end. And so we, month by month, continued with our programs to our implementation contractors. And we encouraged them to continue with internal and in-house trainings, catch up on any stocking and work that they needed to do so that there wasn't any drop in employment for anyone on our teams. We take to heart our partners and the work that we were doing and being consistent. We wanted to have that flow right to our implementation contractors. All of them spent time increasing training for their staff. And then we were very quickly, by May, we were standing up our virtual program. So there was just the small time frame where we called it the downtime, but I never felt down like we weren't working. And, I think that just got changed. We were all just still working. And we utilized that time frame to just make sure the program could tighten up and what could we do to continue to serve not only our customers, but our team, our partners, our implementation contractors.
Yeah, so There's a few points to that. I will start with the commitment to diversity. LG&E and KU, we have 7 BRGs, they're different business resource groups. And those resource groups are established. They allow people of common backgrounds and interests to come together to, increase their professionalism and development within the company. And socially, it helps with retention. So that structure was already in place at the time of last summer when, here, as you may know, in Louisville, Kentucky, we were affected more by the calls for racial justice than maybe some other cities were. So we had a listening session first off within the African American BRG that was well attended by our employee base as well as leadership. And it just gave leadership an opportunity as well as members to express themselves, to understand the impact of this moment. And, from that, we had a couple additional sessions that came out where we talked about unconscious bias and equity. So those were a few things that, the company's taken additional steps to address diversity in the community. But what that meant for us, was just pretty important to allow people to express themselves and to feel like, yeah, this is a home where we don't have to hide that part of, our struggles in some cases. Of course, we are being a part of the community. We bring all that wholeness of who we are to work with ourselves. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. So what are some examples of how your energy optimization team's response to COVID-19 reflected the values, your values, and also your leadership's values?
The concept was to maintain consistency within programs and to keep consumers' energy in the forefront for our customers so that they knew we were still here, that as things were maybe falling apart around them, that we were still going to help and maintain and provide our services still, maybe in a different fashion, but they were still going to be able to touch base with us.
Well, first off, our company values right at the top are health and safety and commitment to the customer. So, when focusing on the customer in the time of 2020, when we had a national pandemic that hit, making sure that the customer is safe and that our workforce was safe in the field, that was just paramount.
Safety is number one for our company, and it's no different for our partners in the field, our implementers. Some of the activities that we took on was probably no different than other utilities where we were instituting the CDC practices, but we went further beyond that because we're interacting with customers. We're coming inside their homes. We instituted virtual assessments, very probably similar to many other utilities, and gave the customer that opportunity. However, we also instituted where we would go into customers' home, and really for the protection of all besides wearing PPE, we recently instituted where the customer needs to wear a mask. Yes, social distancing. Yes, stay away 6 feet, but we didn't want to enter the home unless they had a mask. And we've communicated that up front. It's resonated very well because, again, we're trying to protect everybody involved from the spread of this horrible pandemic. And if there are some customers who choose not to wear a mask, and we just give them a virtual kit so they can install the measures directly, or we just schedule at a later time. But again, some of the practices with post-job briefs, pre-job briefs, extensive training, as well as having the workforce get tested after major holidays and long weekends to assure that the workforce, our business partners, are COVID-free and that we do everything that we can do to provide safety and in the most effective way when we enter a customer's home, because it is a gift and it is scary when you really don't know where this the spread can come from, right? It's human behavior, but again, we took a lot of countermeasures and instituted that, as you know, with our partners. And we've continued to do that, and we'll continue to do that until everybody gets vaccinated.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that. And what innovative program designs did you implement to achieve your year-end goals?
So, again, thinking about COVID, the very first thing that we had to do was to work with your team, and we did this across our contractor base and internally, was the COVID response plan. Again, if we hadn't gotten that right, then anything else we would have tried probably would have failed eventually. So, in developing a COVID response plan, we had planned in there PPE requirements. We had, readiness for work requirements that were spelled out and implemented. We had in the response plan how to interact with customers, a call ahead script to make sure that the customer was aware that we're coming, that we would be doing social distancing, that we'd be wearing masks, and allowed them to ask questions, and then to opt out if they didn't feel comfortable with us being there. So all the things that you hear government, local, and state recommending, we incorporated those internally within LG&E and KU, and then I know SEAL was doing those same things, and it was evident in the COVID response plan that you put forth to us that allowed us to really go forward and to be effective in the field in the midst of COVID.
Well, I don't know if they were innovative, but what we saw was, and what we've done was, during that time period, we've moved a lot of things to online. So we had an online marketplace that has been in practice for a couple years, but we moved more measures, including on the business side, so customers can go online and purchase those energy efficiency products. We saw a huge increase in purchases on the marketplace, as well as having the ability to do direct shipment for our kits. The number of people who completed the online tool to get an energy efficiency kit, it grew exponentially compared to call it normal business. What you also saw, as I mentioned previously, was having virtual energy audits. But in addition to that, we developed, working with our evaluators, the ability to do verification remotely online. And that really helped not only on the business side, especially with larger projects where some of the businesses were closed, but gave us the ability to go into the manufacturing sites to verify the savings. So we've continued those practices this year. And we also have an app that's called the DT Insight that we started to do push notifications to customers where they could see their online energy use in real time. So we saw a great increase in participation and demand for the app, and continue promoting those tools during the pandemic.
Well, first and foremost, it was the 100,000 kits that went out on the side. We also offered some free Nesty thermostats for customers with air conditioning that they would be able to go online and actually request one. Those just weren't sent out. Sorry, I was having a blank. And then we also offered an virtual assessment where we could go into the person's home virtually by an app on their phone and be able to walk through their home and collect the data that we needed to collect, keeping everyone safe, but maintaining programs. We also then would provide a kit to that homeowner based on that assessment. So it was a very personalized kit based on the needs for that home. And the customer would receive that about 2 to 3 weeks after the assessment, along with a report of all of the things that were viewed in their home. We found that these were more interactive, because sometimes when we would go to the home and do an in-person one, the customers are busy with their lives and are doing things while our tech is going through the house. With the virtual, the customer is actually walking through the home with us and has the phone in their hand and is showing us different things in their home that maybe they would have forgotten to show us with the tech there. So we found that we gathered a lot more information about the home.
And in your opinion, what are some lessons learned from 2020 that should remain consistent in the approach to the energy optimization programs moving forward, 2021 and beyond?
Yeah, so I knew this before, and it's something that was just brought front and center again here in 2020, is that the We Care program, we serve a vulnerable population, more impacted by health concerns, income instability, just a community that is dependent upon our assistance to help them with their utility bills. And so in addition to that, going into homes, you could just see the impact of everything COVID related had upon them. So I'll give you two quick stories. Visited one customer. This was just as the COVID was taking off, and we were early adopters of wearing masks. And we went into customers' home and said, "Hey, this is for our protection as well as for your protection." And she said, "Oh yes, I'm very appreciative of you wearing masks. I'm going to go in cancer treatment." And so that was for us. It was like, we probably have had all along a number of customers who have had health concerns that maybe this is something we need to really pay attention to going forward. We had another customer who had a gas leak, and we identified the gas leak. We had to call a gas leak response team to isolate the leak, and so the customer would be safe in their own home. That customer's primary concern was loss of income because she was working from home. Wasn't normal for her, but all of a sudden, we show up, there's a gas leak. She had to evacuate the premise. So she was worried not only about losing hours, but then also getting points for being off the job that afternoon. So it's just front and center. Yet while we respond to Black Swan events and have to be flexible to address all the things that are going to come at us, we still have to keep in mind that we're doing so. We have to do so in a way that keeps the humanity and the personal needs of our customers front and center.
The biggest lesson I would say personally for me, I always reflect back that when the pandemic or the stay-at-home order we had at Michigan first came out, there were a lot of activities when it came to our regulatory filings, just the day-to-day activity and communication that takes place to running a portfolio of our size and the employees on the team. I didn't know if we were going to make it because we're very extroverted. We solve in the moment. We're strong in CI, and we're all on one floor. And walking away, all of a sudden, not having that anymore. In my head, how are we going to continue? How are we going to make goals? How are we going to be strong? How are we going to develop people? How are we going to work with our partners? Because we see our partners every day. And the lesson learned was it's all about communication, constant communication, from not only working day to day, but also I've instituted one-on-ones with every employee. And it takes me about 2 months to do that, but continuing on that, not only from a caring standpoint, but just outreach and making sure everybody's doing well. And I think at the end of the day, having that strong connection builds a momentum and excitement that we do care, that there's a greater purpose that we have at our porch that we serve to our community, our customers, I reflect back and I really, I'm very fortunate and blessed to have the team I have. Without them, we wouldn't have been as successful as we were in the last year, and we're continuing to do that. Again, it takes strong relationships, it takes transparency, it takes honesty, And we have that. And again, I would give kudos to our implementers that we really have built strong relationships, and that's what you need to going forward and to be successful are those strong relationships and to be an open mind, because you know what, our practices did change. We're doing everything remotely. And again, I was probably one of the few, maybe I wasn't or was, but I had a lot of doubt in my head how this was going to work. But again, stepping up and tackling it and having the communications, daily communications, over communicating is something we continue to do and will continue to do in this environment. And I'm just thrilled with the engagement of the team and the energy and the creativity that has spawned from it.
Definitely the virtual inspection. We found that even now that we are open and the techs are going back into homes, that we're still having maybe about a 25% a group of customers who are still very interested in having us do virtual. Now that could be because the pandemic is still going on and they're staying safe and not having people in their home. But it also showed us that there's a market there, that there are people who would like to just have that inspection with them, doing it virtually with no one coming in their home. The other thing that it will offer is that we won't be a 9 to 5 tech in the home time frame. Like there's no reason why we couldn't do a Saturday or a Sunday appointment or an evening appointment that doesn't put anybody, outside where they're just in their homes and doing it at their convenience. So I think that there's opportunities now to grow the program in a different way and serve the customer better.
Awesome. So also, in your opinion, did you ever think last year that you were not going to be able to reach your savings goals? And if not, what changed your confidence level? And what also changed your outlook on that, on the program to get to the goal?
By nature, I'm a pessimist when it comes to call it goals,
Okay.
call it a plan. I always try to think of the worst case scenario so you can plan for that, because hope is not a plan. We got together very quickly to say what was possible and looking externally at the data to say what is really driving our savings, right? At the retail chains, that volume increased tremendously. So we capitalized on the trends in the data and maximize those opportunities. And we knew the direct installs residential programs were going to get shut down. So we said, how can we come up with countermeasures that will really, knowing that this piece of the business is shutting down for a while, how can we make up the savings? Because we couldn't just sit still and wait until something happens or we came out of the stay-at-home order. Because at the end of the day, there's only so many days of the week, right? I was so thrilled when we had our problem solving sessions about all the different ideas that developed about increasing incentive levels, offering bonuses during short period of times to stimulate the market, right? You had to do something different to stimulate the market, and just the constant outreach and communication to the community to let them know they have options.
I was one of the ones who had my hand up, who thought there was absolutely no way that being out of the market 3 months, that we were going to still be able to maintain that savings. And with conversations with management, with our implementation contractors, with Seal, with you, that we definitely came to the conclusion that if we doubled up and did these virtuals and provided these kits, that there was an opportunity that we would make it. And by the middle of October, I was pretty confident that we were going to slide into home plate, and we did. And
what happened in October to change your thoughts?
The numbers were consistent. They weren't, and when I say the numbers, I'm talking about appointments for customers coming in, calling in for assessments. There was still the interest there. That never stopped. And when we went back for in-home assessments, our numbers went, straight back up to where they had been in October of 2019. And so that gave me the confidence that we were maintaining our program and the consistency for our customers. And it never dropped down. It just continued to keep the numbers where we needed them to be. And we had reforecasted and we stayed at our reforecast.
Quite honestly, I was pretty confident all along that we would hit our goals. I mean, that was a decision that as we considered, early on what to do in terms of achieving those goals, we could have backed off. We chose to go forward and set down, an expectation that we're going to meet our metrics for the year in spite of a 2-week shutdown, or as I say, 2-month shutdown. It was actually more like 10 weeks that our program was suspended to allow for us to adjust to COVID. So that was a major, major hurdle to overcome. But we definitely had confidence in SEAL, and through the local leadership here in Louisville, I knew that if we said we've got to go get these numbers, that we're going to be able to do it. So I believe I was always confident that we were going to get the numbers and meet the metrics. The question was, are we going to be able to do it and still be safe? Are we going to be able to do it and still meet the softer points? And realizing there are some things that we had to make adjustments and make allowances for. We can't ask you to make up for 10 weeks of lost productivity and not allow for some adjustments. But for all the major points of getting our energy savings, getting the number of completions, for staying within the budget, those were targets we set out, and SEAL just went and got them. And I've said it before, we're very appreciative of the way you allowed us to do this on our customers' behalf. So thank you.